All right, welcome to the explainer. So, when a crime happens, who's actually on the hook, legally speaking? You might think it's just one person, but it's usually way more complicated than that.
So, to get our heads around this, let's use a classic example. Imagine a big, flashy art heist. A priceless masterpiece is stolen. The big question is, who's guilty?
You'd think, right? The person who actually grabs the painting off the wall. They're guilty. Case closed. But is that it? Are they the only one to blame? What about the getaway driver? You know, the one waiting outside with the engine running? They never even went inside, but without them, the whole heist is a bust. So where did they fit in?
And then, what about the insider? The one who maybe disabled the alarm system hours before anyone even got there. They're not even at the scene of the crime. Okay, so let's untangle this whole web and see how the law actually figures this stuff out.
All right, Section 1, the blueprint for a crime. We're talking about liability before the act. Because, and this is key, you can be guilty of a crime long before it even happens. It all starts with a plan.
So, check this out. The second our crew gets together and agrees, yep, let's do this, they've already committed a crime. It's called conspiracy. The crime isn't the theft. Not yet. The crime is the agreement itself. Just making that deal is illegal.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Let's say one of them gets cold feet and backs out. Doesn't matter. The crime of conspiracy has already been committed. Why? Because the agreement was made. The law sees the plan itself as the danger.
Okay, so it's really important to see the difference here. You've got conspiracy, which is a group agreeing to a plan, and then you have counseling, where one person is just egging another on, trying to get them to commit a crime. The key thing is both of these can get you in serious trouble before anyone even puts on a ski mask.
Okay, next up, executing the plan. We're looking at liability during the act. So the plan is in motion, the crew is inside the gallery. Let's see who's on the hook now.
So, first up, you've got the principal. That's the main person, right? The one who's actually doing the thing. In our heist, it's the person physically taking the painting off the wall.
But it's not always just one person. You can have co-principals. Think about a bank robbery. One person threatens the teller, the other one grabs the cash. Neither of them did the whole crime alone, but together they did. So boom, they're co-principals.
And this brings us to two really important terms, aiding and abetting. Aiding is physically helping out. That's our getaway driver. Abetting is more about encouraging, yelling, "Go for it," from the sidelines. Both are big trouble.
Okay, now this is the absolute key takeaway. The person who took the painting, the driver, the lookout shouting encouragement, under the law, they are all guilty of the exact same crime. It's not like one gets a lesser charge. Nope, they're all seen as parties to the offense, and they're all on the hook equally. The law sees it as a team effort, and it holds the whole team responsible.
All right, new section, the almost crime. We're talking liability for incomplete offenses. So let's hit rewind for a sec. What if our crew gets busted before they even get their hands on the painting? Is that still a crime?
Well, yeah, it can be. The law has a whole category for this called inchoate offenses. Think of them as incomplete crimes. The whole point is to stop a crime before the real harm happens by making the steps leading up to it illegal.
So there's a really important line here. Just preparing, buying ski masks, looking at blueprints, that's generally not a crime. But at some point, you cross over from mere preparation into an actual attempt. Trying to jimmy the lock, disabling an alarm. Now you've crossed the line. You're in a whole new world of trouble. Figuring out exactly where that line is, well, that's what keeps lawyers busy.
All right, Section 4, the clean getaway. Liability after the fact. So let's imagine the heist was a total success. They've got the painting, they're gone. But now a friend helps them hide out. What's that person's deal legally?
That person is what the law calls an accessory after the fact. And this is really important. Their crime isn't the art heist. Their crime is helping someone they know is a criminal get away with it.
Now, to get convicted as an accessory, the prosecution has to prove a few things. First, you have to know the person committed a crime. Second, you have to intend to help them escape. And third, you have to actually do something. Hide them, get rid of the evidence, whatever. Just knowing about the crime and not calling the cops, that's usually not enough to make you an accessory. So let's make this super clear. A party to the robbery is someone involved before or during the crime. They're guilty of the robbery. An accessory, on the other hand, helps after it's all over. They're guilty of a totally separate and usually less serious offense, helping a criminal escape. Okay, last section. The law's long reach. Why does all of this even matter? We've followed this heist from the first whisper of a plan to the clean getaway. So what's the big lesson?
Well, here are the key takeaways. Criminal guilt goes way beyond just the person who does the main act. Planners can be guilty of conspiracy the second they agree. Helpers who aid or encourage are just as guilty of the main crime. Even trying and failing is its own crime. And helping someone after the fact? Yep, that's a crime too. The law is basically designed to hold the entire criminal team accountable from start to finish.
And that leaves us with one last pretty deep question. So much of this boils down to what you know. But that makes you wonder, where does just turning a blind eye stop and where does criminal guilt begin? It's a fine line, and it really makes you think about what it means to be involved.